Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. All right, we are on section 2 of Surah Al Imran, and we are on verse 10. So the first section was kind of like an introduction about the surah and about what's going to happen to people on the Day of Judgment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن الذين كفروا لن تغني عنهم أموالهم ولا أولادهم من الله شيئا. Neither the wealth nor the children of the disbelievers will be of any benefit to them against Allah. So this is the way some people falsely think. They spend most of their life on trying to gather up children, like trying to have children, trying to get a lot of children, get a lot of wealth, and keep in mind, these were the two things that people would value a lot in the past, because still today people gather wealth and they think that the money is going to buy them a bunch of things which are somehow going to make them powerful, happy, and somehow that's going to just help them in some way live forever, or they feel like they're going to live forever, or they think that somehow they can buy their way into Jannah and like get forgiven for their sins or something like that. And this is a mentality that some people used to have. I mean, if you look at the history of the Catholic Church, they used to sell confessions. You could literally buy a confession. So you commit some sins and they're like, okay, you pay this much money and the church will write you an official forgiveness. You have been forgiven by God for such and such thing. So, someone came up with a drive-through forgiveness idea. I'm pretty sure it stops, unless they're doing it undercover or something like that, So, yeah. So, but that's what people thought. There were some people who thought that way, and they thought that, with their children can earn them money and give them power and all of that. So Allah is saying those things that you value so much and that you strive for in life so much, they're not going to be able to help you against Allah. If you're doing something wrong, Allah is going to hold you accountable. Nothing is going to be able to help you against Allah. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. They will be the fuel for the fire. So it's talking about the hellfire. It's saying those people who think that these things will help them, but they're still fighting against Islam, they're rejecting Allah, they will be in the hellfire. And not only that, they will be the fuel for the fire. So it just adds a level of, a fear that, what, this is what's going to happen to them. This is what's going to be their ultimate destination. And then Allah says, كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ. Just like what happened to the people of Pharaoh and those before them. So this is directly connected to the previous verse. The previous verse was, all this stuff that people are gathering up, it's not going to help them at all against Allah. And it's saying, just like the people of the Pharaoh, the people who controlled Egypt at the time, they were building pyramids, they were building buildings, they were enslaving the children of Israel and making them do all this hard labor, and they had a very prosperous civilization. But all that stuff didn't help them against Allah. وَالَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ. And all the people that passed before them. So we think about all the nations and communities that even Allah mentions in the Qur'an. The people of Prophet Nuh, the people of Prophet Hud, the Ad, the people of Thamud, the people of Lut. They all have a similar story. So Allah is basically saying that, hey, there's these stories of people who were powerful, they were mighty, they rejected their messengers, they thought that their money is going to do them something, but it's not going to help them at all. They thought all the followers and children and army that they have is going to do something. It's not going to help them at all. So it's the same story again and again. And if you look at history just tends to repeat itself. It's cyclical. You have one group of people, they think that this is going to somehow be like the best thing for them. They feel like they're going to live forever. They think they're going to remain in power forever. And then they're destroyed and they fall. And then another civilization comes up later and they think the same thing and they run after the same thing. And it just continues and continues. And Allah is describing that exact cycle that continues to perpetuate. كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا فَأَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِذُنُوبِهِمْ. They rejected our signs, So Allah sees them for their sins. So you reject the signs of Allah, Allah is going to hold you accountable for that. Gives you a little bit of time to think about, do you want to make some change? But then collectively as a whole, that civilization gets destroyed. It falls. Those people fall. And not only are they going to be punished in the next life, even their civilization gets destroyed within this world. How many civilizations have lasted over 2,000 years? None. 1,000 years, very few, barely, made it. And even that's cyclical within a civilization or within a society. So Allah is reminding people that no, they're going to be held accountable. And Allah is going to hold people accountable in this life, and He's going to hold them accountable, most importantly, in the next. Wallahu shadidul iqab. Allah is severe in punishments. This is referring to both ways, but primarily in the next life. So Allah is warning people. We'll take questions at the end, inshallah. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. Say or tell them, so it's singular. Whenever it's singular, it's referring to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But it's saying, Prophet, tell the disbelievers, specifically the ones who are fighting against Islam during that time, soon you will be overpowered and you'll be driven to hell. So it's two parts here. Number one, soon you're going to be overpowered means in this world. So you are thinking that you're in a position of power, just like the communities before. People of Pharaoh, people of Nuh, the Ad, the Thamud, all these powerful nations. Now it's talking directly to the Prophet, peace be upon him, to tell the people who are his enemies. Now, who are his enemies at this time? There were two main groups of people. Remember, this surah is being revealed around after the Battle of Uhud. So around 3 AH, the surah is being revealed. Surah Al-Baqarah is being revealed, starting to be revealed after the Battle of Badr. So 2 AH. So we're talking about very, very early Medinan phase. So it's been at least 14, 15 years since the start of the revelation to the Prophet, peace be upon him. So who were the main two enemies that were hostile to the cause of Islam and to the Prophet and to the Muslims? Anyone tell me one of them? Who are the mushrikeen? The pagans of Mecca, people of Quraysh, right? The tribe of Quraysh and the ones who are the idol worshippers from Mecca and around the surrounding areas. There's number one. Who's the second group? The Jews of Medina, right? So he's saying, tell those people, these two groups in particular, you're going to be overpowered very soon. You're not going to last very long. Some nations, they last like 100 years, 200 years. You guys, it's going to be soon, coming very soon. And then in the next life, you're going to be punished in the hellfire. So both of these things are going to happen. So this is like a prophecy. This is a warning of what's to come. And what's interesting is, let me finish the verse. وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادِ. What a horrible place to stay. So the people who are going to end up in the hellfire, what a miserable place to end up. So what happened to these two groups? Remember, this is happening around the year 3 AH. Within a few years, all of the Jewish tribes lose their position of power and authority, ejected from Medina, and pretty much the rest of them around that area, they're gone. They don't have any position of power in Arabia at all. And within a few years, the Quraysh, who's in control of Mecca, they lose Mecca. They lose everything. And like half of them all become Muslim. So that all of the power that they thought they had and the structure that they had built and everything, within a few years, it's gone. And this is exactly what the Prophet was telling them just a few years prior to when it happened. So this is a prophecy that got fulfilled very quickly. Next verse. And Allah says, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ فِي فِئَتَيْنِ الْتَقَتَا. There was a sign for you in the two armies that met. Now, if I didn't give you the parentheses here, you wouldn't know what this is talking about, right? And this is one of the good verses that explains why we need to know some history and why we need to know some context for the Quran. Otherwise, it's very hard to understand some verses of the Quran like this. Imagine you didn't have any commentary and you didn't have any parentheses here. And it says there's a sign for you in the two armies that met. And it's not going to tell you who the two armies are. It's not going to tell you where they met. It's not going to tell you what happened exactly. So how do you know what happened? You have to know a little bit about history. So the no, Badr, right? So this is you need to know some context. So it says there was a sign for you in what? In the victory of the Muslims at this battle when the two armies met in the Battle of Badr. So it's saying there was a sign in that. So Allah is referring back to a victory that took place. So first it's saying, if you go back a few verses, there's going to be all of these communities that thought they were powerful, they get destroyed. Then Allah says, you people who are oppressing the Prophet and fighting against the Muslims, you're going to be destroyed very soon. And they were. And then it's saying there's a sign that this is going to happen. The Battle of Badr was a sign for you. You guys lost. Should have woken up. You know, you should wake up right now. This is third year. You should wake up right now before it's too late. And they didn't. But this gave them an opportunity to kind of think about this. And it says, there was a sign for you in the Battle of Badr of what happened and what's to come if you continue your hostility against Islam. فئة تقاتل في سبيل الله وأخرى كافرة يرونهم مثليهم رأي العين. One was fighting for the cause of Allah, and the other was rejecting. What were they rejecting? They were rejecting the Prophet. They were rejecting the message of Islam. They saw them as twice their number with their own eyes. That's what the Quran says. They saw them as twice their number with their own eyes. So who's the they and who's the them, right? So there's a they and there's a there, right? So who's the they and who's the there? So what happened? Yes, Ali. Is that because you saw it in the parentheses? No, you knew it before? MashaAllah, very good. All right. So this is the benefit of having, shorter height. So we know that you weren't looking. Yes, you're right. So there's actually two interpretations given by scholars. One of the interpretations is that the Muslims saw the disbelievers like that. And the other one is the disbelievers saw the Muslims like that. You went with the second one, and that's the one that I prefer. And some of the scholars prefer. And I'll tell you why. So basically, it's saying that they, the disbelieving army, the Quraysh, when they were fighting in the Battle of Badr, they saw the Muslims, and the Muslims were completely outnumbered, right? The Quraysh army was 3 times larger than the Muslim army. So it was like 300 people, 313, something like that, against almost 1,000 people. And they were outmanned, and they were weaponized and out armored and out supplies and everything. So the Quraysh army had a ton of camels, many horses, chainmail armor, arrows, weapons, better swords, everything. And the Muslim army had a lot less people, and they had less of all of that equipment, right? So normally that's very, very problematic. But on top of that, Allah is saying that the disbelievers, when they looked at the Muslim army, even though they're 1/3, it made it seem, when they're looking, they made it seem like they're double. Right? So this was part of the help of Allah. Allah helped the Muslims in Badr in many, many different ways. One of the ways He helped them is that when they saw the army, they're like, these Muslims are like, they're powerful, and there's so many of them. Like, where'd they all come from? Actually, they were 1/3 the number, but they saw them as double. Right? So imagine what this did for the morale of the Muslims. Muslims are like, hey, they look like they're kind of afraid of us. This is good. This makes life easier for us. So Allah wanted to make things easy for the Muslims. And He's saying, this is what you saw with your eyes. Right?
The non-believer saw the Muslims as twice the disbelievers.
Yeah, exactly. Thought they were double. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Double their own number. So this was a blessing from Allah. Wallahu yu'ayyidu binasrihi man yasha. Allah supports with His victory whomever He wills. So part of the victory of Allah is that Allah is giving the special divine support to the Muslims, because it's going to make their life a lot easier. Even though they don't have the, He's so many things. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the numbers. But Allah instilled this extra fear in the hearts of the disbelievers. Allah sent angels to go and help fight, and they would see that. And Allah sent down a rain, which actually caused problems for the disbelievers. But for the Muslims, it rejuvenated them and gave them energy, and so many other things that happened in the Battle of Badr. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِأُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. Surely in this is a lesson for people of insight. So in this, meaning in this victory at the Battle of Badr, that a small army would defeat a larger army, that a smaller, ill-equipped group of people are going to defeat a very well-equipped, very well-established, very powerful army of the Quraysh. And Allah is tying all of this back into saying, all your money, all your children, all the people, all the civilization that you've built, it's not going to help you against Allah. When Allah decides to help his people, you can't win. There's nothing you can do. Right? So this is talking about the Battle of Badr and how it was a victory for the Muslims, but it was a sign to remind the people that, hey, change your ways. Don't continue doing what you're doing. You need to reverse course here. Verse 14. زين للناس حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث. The love of pleasures has been made appealing to people. And of course, what's the purpose behind that? It's part of the test of Allah. Allah lets you love good things and you crave pleasures and things like that, because that's part of your test. Are you going to go to the extreme in these things? And it's saying among those things that people crave are women, and for women, men, children, having lots of children, treasures of gold and silver, fine horses, cattle, and fertile land. So basically, Allah is explaining, and he's saying, look, these are among the things that people love to have. Now, these are the specific things that people in Arabian society, they enjoyed, they liked. If you take this and you just generalize it, right? Women represent the desires of lust, desires of the flesh, wanting to have physical relationships. And these pleasures, when they're made appealing to you, doesn't mean that you can't engage in some of them, but they have to be within limits, within confines. It has to be some level of control, not unrestricted. This becomes your entire life. So that's category number one in terms of like physical desires. Number two, children. So it's basically saying that, people love to have children. Now, children in the context of Arab society was, if you have a lot of children, they're going to grow up, they're going to work for you. No child labor laws, right? They're going to work for you. Now you got some workers that have very low salaries, meaning zero, because family business. So they're going to work. And when they grow up, they can become strong. If they're boys, they can become part of the army, and then they're going to fight to defend you, and you can take over other tribes. Nobody can, no one can like mess with you and your family. And if they're daughters, you can marry them into another powerful family, and then that will ally two tribes together. And now your tribe is starting to expand from a more hunter-gatherer or primitive form of society. This is the way people build up power, they build up strength. So having the children, now again, children today are also a temptation in the sense that you enjoy playing with them, and they're fun to have and all that stuff. So that's nice too. But in that context, it was more about children to establish your family and establish yourself. So you got category number two, treasures of gold and silver. So the currency at the time was gold and silver. They used to use dinars and dirhams. Which one was gold and which one was silver?
Dinars is gold, dirham is silver.
You got it. Dinar was gold and dirhams were silver. Now this sounds like an Arab name, dinar and dirham, and some Arab countries, they still use dinar and dirham. But was it an Arabic word?
Sounds Urdu.
It's actually Roman. So this was not like a currency that was originated in Arabia. right? This was a currency that was taken from the powerful empires of the time, because you know, small communities like the Arabs, they didn't have so many resources at their disposal. So we're talking about coins that are going to be minted. You have to have somebody, melting the gold and then hammering it and then putting like a logo on it and all of that stuff. In the beginning, before Islam started becoming dominant power, all of these were just imports. You had gold coins coming from the Persian Empire, gold coins coming from the Roman Empire. And they all had the seal of either the Kisra, the Khosros, or they would have the seal of Caesar on them. Eventually, like 50 years later, the Muslims start minting their own coins. But otherwise, Arabs didn't have their own coins minted. They didn't have Abu Jahl or Abu Talib or Abdul Muttalib or anybody on their coins. They would just be using foreign coins. So, anyways, treasures of gold and silver. People think that money can buy them things. So people want to pile them up and they want to gather them and they want to have as many as possible. And then fine horses. Fine horses, these are like branded horses, like the high class horses that you have. This is like fancy vehicles. Nothing has changed. Today, all the wealthy people in the world, they have like an entire warehouse full of like 50 Ferraris and Lamborghinis that they don't even drive, right? They're like, oh, Ferrari is making 50 of these vehicles only in the world. You got all these rich people, they're like, put me down for one, put me down for two, and it's just going to show up in the warehouse and it's going to sit in the warehouse. And if it gets driven even once, it's like, wow, they actually turned it on. Big deal. Same thing. People, when they take it to that extreme, they want to have these horses, which were the vehicles, but they want like the high quality one and they want all this fancy stuff. And then cattle and fertile land represents business. So all the business products that you're going to be able to sell eventually, cattle was one of them. You're going to get milk, and then you're going to, cattle is a very good, animals are very good business in general, because what they do is they reproduce. And when they reproduce, you just double your investment. So every time they reproduce, they just double your investment again. So it works very well. And then fertile land stuff is going to grow out, natural irrigation. So you're going to have all this. So these are basically ways of making money. It's like today, it's like increasing your stocks, assuming bonds were halal, your bonds are going up, or whatever other investments that you have, all of these things. This is what people crave. And Allah is saying that He has made the love of these type of pleasures inside the heart of people naturally. This is what people crave and what they want. And this is part of the test in life, that they have to, what do they have to resist? Not that they can't have any of it, but they have to resist changing their entire life to only running after these things, to the neglect of everything else what they're supposed to be doing in life. They're not supposed to neglect everything else. They have another purpose to fulfill. ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. These are the pleasures of this worldly life. So those things, these are the pleasures in this life. وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. But with Allah is the best destination, meaning paradise, right? And what makes it the best destination? So all these pleasures there, all of these things, they're going to go away. They're not going to remain forever. But that's part of the test in life. You can enjoy some of these things to an extent. But if you want those things to last and you want them to be permanent, then you need to get to the next level. You need to get to the final destination with Allah. So, yeah, let's leave it at that. And then last verse for today, because this is a long section, so I'm going to do half. قُلْ أَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ مِّن ذَلِكُمْ. Say, singular, prophet, shall I inform you of what is better than all of that? Right? What's better than all of those things? Now, what makes it better? Number one, the quality will make it better, and the duration will make it better. So the things that you're going to get in paradise, let's say you get the horses, you get the nice fancy horses in paradise that you want, or fancy vehicles, right? What's different about the vehicles in this world and the vehicles in paradise? Well, number one, quality is way better, right? And in paradise, you'll always have some defect in a car. right? No matter how nice the car is, there's going to be something that could be improved. The quality of things that you get in Jannah, there's no need for improvement at all. You get exactly the perfect thing. And it probably just keeps on modifying however you want, whatever you want. And the duration, it never goes away. Your car can be taken away. It's going to get old. There's a new model that's going to come. It's going to break down. It needs to be repaired, especially those fancy cars. Like an oil change is like $100,000. You got to remove the whole engine, right? I don't know if you heard of it, like Bugatti. You need to like move the whole engine just to like get an oil change, and then it's like $100,000 for an oil change. Like, it's very expensive to have things like this. But in Jannah, you're not going to have those issues, right? And if we reflect upon it, if we think about it, this is like the only real bliss. Like this is the real pleasure that you can get. So there's a principle that you might learn in high school economics class. I learned it in high school economics. It's called diminishing marginal utility. All right, I think I've covered this in Surah Al-Baqarah before. Does anyone remember what this was? Diminishing marginal utility. It's okay. I'm gonna teach it to you again, even though you're not in high school. What grade are you in? 9. Ali, you're in 9. Ali, what grade are you in? 6th. So you're gonna learn this. It's supposed to be taught in 11th grade, but you're gonna learn it now. Okay. Diminishing marginal utility. Very simple. Okay. If you have chocolate cookies, which are gonna come inshallah next week. That's the intention, is to have them. Okay, you have chocolate chip cookies. The first bite, does it taste good?
Yes.
Does the second bite taste good? Does the first or the second bite taste better? Equal for you? For most people, the first bite. Third bite is still good? Still pretty good. Is the first bite better than the third bite? Yes. How's the 20th bite taste? No. This is a giant cookie. You just keep on eating cookies. You came early to tafsir class and nobody else showed up on time, and you're just eating the cookies. How's the 20th bite taste?
Good taste.
It's really not that good, right? By that time, you're like, this is not that great. And you compare the first bite to the 20th bite, even the third bite to the 20th bite, it's just not there, right? In fact, by the 20th bite, it can get so bad that it may not even give you any pleasure. And you may not even enjoy it. So the way that it's described, so that's the simple explanation, all right? The explanation in economics is diminishing marginal utility is a phenomenon where each additional unit of gain will lead to an ever smaller increase in the subjective value of that item.
Why?
11th grade, inshallah. just think about it. Why? Allah made us this way. Why is it that the 20th bite doesn't taste like the first bite, or the 5th bite doesn't taste like the first bite? Why, Ali? Exactly. You don't get the same thing. That nourishment lasts for a period of time. Now, imagine in Jannah, every single bite is going to taste like the first bite. That's Jannah, right? That's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. The Prophet's saying, let me tell you of something better than all of those things. Something that's going to be everlasting. Something that's going to remain. That's what's going to happen when it comes to Jannah. So let's wait for the adhan.
What time does tafsir class start now?
Always 45 minutes before Isha. All right. So then Allah says, لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ جَنَّاتٌ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَأَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Those who are mindful, meaning mindful of Allah, will have gardens with their Lord under which rivers flow. It's one thing you're going to get in Jannah, to stay there forever. They'll have pure spouses, which we discussed before in Surah Al-Baqarah, meaning pure from any type of impurity, physical, as well as emotional or argumental etiquette, yeah. And وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, and you get Allah's pleasure. This was added in. It's added in there because there's a psychological pleasure of your Lord being happy with you, like pleasing Allah. It's like when your parents or somebody you love, they're so proud of you, did something so good, and you're like, not only did you do something, but you're so happy that they're proud of you. So the fact that Allah is pleased with you, that's just going to be a delight in and of itself. It's going to give you a whole nother level of feeling in Jannah. Wallahu basirun bil ibad. Allah sees the servants, meaning Allah sees the servants of His, and He's going to reward them for the things that they did. Okay, one parenthesis off there. All right, I'll open it up for questions. So yes.
I had a question, so I'll answer for the example. One reason Allah could be making it so when it gets like 25, doesn't taste that much, is that so you don't feel when you're just keep harming your body.
Exactly. That's one reason. You don't just keep harming your body and keep going. The second reason is we also understand that all of these pleasures in this life, they're limited and they go away. So we have some level of understanding that, hey, we have a desire, craving for Jannah. This was the only life and you got everything here. If this was Jannah, you wouldn't want to go to Jannah. You wouldn't care for it. Good. Yes.
We need cars in Jannah.
Not really. Inshallah, not really.
Oh,
But people always ask, they're like, can I get whatever I want in Jannah? Yeah. Like, well, can I get a sports car in Jannah? If that's what you really want, maybe you won't even want that. But if that's what you want, yeah, you're getting something way better. Something that we can't even imagine. I know, alhamdulillah. Yes, I mean. Okay, so why not give the Muslims greater numbers or more weapons from the beginning so that they're confident? Because they're also being tested. So, right, there wouldn't be a test. If it was just super easy for them, Allah could have just been like, look, we're just going to send an angel and he's going to wipe out the whole army. You guys can just sit down. You don't even need to stand. Just take a seat. We got this. There's no challenge, right? So there's a test for them as well. So there's a test, but then there's some good news. This is like everything that you go through in life. You're going to be tested, and then there's some relief, and everything's like, okay, alhamdulillah, Allah's helping me. And then there's another test that comes, and you're like, this is really tough. And then more relief comes. And that's the way Allah keeps on testing us with these cycles.
Basically, also like rely on faith, not that, oh, we're going to win because we have all of this, more that Allah will guide us through it.
Exactly. That's part of their test too. Exactly. Other questions? Yeah.
What's the difference between adab and iqab?
So, scholars have gone into different details about what the potential could be, but you could say for the most part, they're synonymous.
what was the question?
Question is the difference between the word azab and iqab, which means like punishment and like torture or punishment as well. So you could just say for now they're mostly synonymous. Yeah. Right. Anything else? Okay, then we will see you next week. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.